Okay, so how do people moderate their drinking? Well, what is moderation? Moderation is drinking in a way that is controlled, it's measured, and it's balanced, not going overboard that results in negative consequences. Some describe it as an alcohol diet, right? We restrict or we deny intake to meet a desired outcome. I don't know about you, but I was never good with food diets, and I was certainly never good with alcohol diets. But some people do it, they are successful. So we'll carry on, right? So the goals are, things like enjoyment instead of being intoxicated, relaxation instead of anxiety, 6 or 7 hours down track, connection instead of isolation, control instead of regret, right? They're good goals, but they are all drinking to a level that doesn't invoke those negative consequences of, intoxication, anxiety, isolation, regret, all of those things and more. Might look like maybe 1 or 2 drinks max on any one occasion, or a set limit of drinks per week, ideally under the standard guidelines. The key idea is that alcohol doesn't run the show, right? You do. So why do people say it's difficult? Why do we have problems with trying to moderate our drinking? Well, alcohol lowers inhibitions. So that part of your conscious brain that tries to put the brakes on things, right? That knows, drinking to excess causes consequences. The way to do that is to control, right? So once you've had a drink or two, that part of the brain that's basically saying, stop here, put the brakes on, gets completely overridden, right? And that's why just one more is so common. Big one that people don't realize. Alcohol is addictive, right? Shock horror. Who'd have thought? But it hijacks the reward system in the brain and it creates a need for itself. It creates a need for more alcohol to feed it. And the mechanism that does that is the basis of addiction. And this creating need for more is what makes the moderation challenging because you're on this diet, only 1 or 2 drinks on any one occasion, but you've got an addictive substance in your system that's saying, more, more, give me more. Habit and routine. So if drinking has become part of your nightly wind down or, going to the pub several times a week at the same time, breaking that pattern after 1 or 2 can feel really uncomfortable. Tolerance. So over time, the body adjusts to the presence of alcohol, right? Especially if you're drinking consistently, for several days a week, week in, week out. The result of the tolerance is due to the presence of the dampeners when alcohol hits your brain. So normally when you say have one drink, you get a big spike of dopamine, you'll get a dampener, right? And that will tend to dampen down the big spike. Now, tolerance means that your body is putting more and more and more of the dampener in the system, and it's actually anticipating the alcohol. So when you finally get around to your moderated drink, you just don't get the buzz, or it just doesn't feel as satisfying as it would if you had that first beer on a Friday night. Peer and social pressure. So, many Aussie and other bloke settings, friends, moderation can feel really awkward if your mates or your friends expect you to keep up with them or get into rounds with them, or they're getting a bit buzzy and they're starting to egg you on, right? That can feel really awkward. Black and white thinking. So some people find it easier to not drink at all or go all in. Have one drink, bugger it, I'll just keep going. I'll go all in with it. And trying to stay in the middle ground feels mentally draining. So remember that the brain doesn't like to use energy thinking about the what, the where, the when, how many, and so on every time you want to have a drink. All right, yeah, okay, so great. I get all that, but how do we moderate? All right, well, chances are you've been drinking for quite some time at levels that maybe are bothering you, and you want to moderate or cut back. So your brain might be used to a certain level of alcohol per week. Week in, week out, it may not be much, or it may be a lot. You probably don't remember what it's not like to drink for long periods. And with that in mind, you need to have a bit of a plan. So you need to set clear limits before you start, decide on how many you will have, e.g., two max at any one time, and stick to it, right? And then have like boundaries and non-negotiables, right? A non-negotiable will be if I feel that I'm going to have that third drink, I will leave. The boundary might be if my mates start egging me on, I will leave. Right? They're slightly different. One is in response to other people, and the other one, the non-negotiable, is like an internal thing. The boundary, if my mates egg me on, I will leave, is to do with other people. Slow your pace down. So sip, don't gulp, and alternate your alcohol with drinks like water or soft drinks. When you do drink, perhaps choose a lower strength option to start with. So a mid-strength beer, maybe a wine spritzer, or start with an alcohol-free alternative to help stretch things out. Definitely don't drink on an empty stomach because having a full stomach with lots of food in it will slow down the absorption of the alcohol. And it's not hitting your system in a big whack, and it helps you stay in control. Right? If you only had breakfast in the morning, you skip lunch, and you're at the pub 7 o'clock at night, and you grab a large glass of beer, full strength beer, and throw that down your throat, that's going to make you buzzy really quick because it's going to hit your bloodstream really quick. Right? And if you decided you were only going to have two, you might find yourself having more than two. So plan your nights, decide in advance what days you're going to drink. Certainly keep alcohol-free days in your week. If you are going out, decide on things like how you're getting there, how you're getting home, set boundaries and non-negotiables to help you navigate through the evening. Certainly, you could change your environment. Instead of, going to the pub, you could go somewhere else, more neutral. Um, Avoid rounds, use smaller glasses. Don't buy the great big glasses, buy the smaller ones. When you get home, don't have alcohol available, right? Don't keep stuff in your fridge. Like I used to be really uncomfortable if I had less than a carton of beer in the house, right? I would keep it there and I'd try and moderate, but then when I got home, I would think, oh yeah, there's a beer in the fridge, I'm going to have one. And that would blow my moderation out of the water. Tune into your why. Remind yourself, enjoyment, not intoxication, relaxation, not anxiety, those goals that you had when you wanted to moderate in the first place. Check in with yourself. Ask yourself, do I still feel good or am I chasing the buzz? Right? By pausing and questioning yourself, that can prevent you from having more than you want to. And if this all works, great. But if it doesn't, then what would I do? Well, I would recommend you restart moderation after an extended break. And that break needs to be about 30 days, right? So that you have like a baseline, an understanding of what it feels like to have no alcohol in your system over, say, 4 weeks. And then when you're ready, you can reintroduce the alcohol as we talked about, 2 drinks a week, right? And look, moderation works for some, but for others, like myself, it became a constant tug of war. And it just felt like a battle every time I went to do it. And I found that, for me, it may not be the same for you, but for me, it was easier and more freeing to have that longer break and just keep going rather than reintroduce some alcohol. But look, it's your show. It's up to you. Nobody's telling you you must do it this way or you must do it that way. Giving you some ideas. So, take those on board and look, have a go.